the senator, while indoctrinated, could not explain his toxicity.
You should not listen to men's rights advocates if you want to know what they have to say.
Did we mute while this blaring?
Hello and welcome to Hannah forgets to switch her tabs on the computer right before the show. Welcome to what must he think of his readers? The HBR Talk 286 show. So guys, this is going to be a rough one for me today. I've had like 2 hours of sleep. It's been a long week and I'm going to make all kinds of verbal mistakes tonight, so you're just going to have to bear with me, because I'm a bear today. I'm not a badger. I'll be a grouch. It's perfect for reading something that is already going to make me grouchy, so there we go. But I'm your host, Hannah Wallen, here with Nonsense Annihilator Lauren Brooks, and the personification of perceptivity, Mike Stevenson, and tonight we're wading back into a flood of feminist baloney. But before we get to that, we gotta do what we gotta do. As always, Honey Badger Radio dishes out a smorgasbord of thought-provoking discussions, and as experiences both recent and long past have demonstrated, the provoked thoughts are fighting back. They've made it clear that for people like us, relying on third-party platforms like Patreon to fund our work is treading on thin ice, or building our house in the path of a rapidly growing wildfire. In light of this, we strongly encourage our supporters to switch at least their support for us to feedthebadger.com, the most stable way to help us out. And if you want to tip us directly instead of relying on any social media platform's tip jar, the link for that is feedthebadger.com/justthetip. And as always, the same risk applies to our social media platforms, which is why you should further provoke the thought police by tracking our thought-provoking discussions on honeybadgerbrigade.com, where you can find your way to all of our content as well as a link to feedthebadger.com in the drop-down menu at the top of the page. And before we drop into this article, let's recap a little bit. So far, we've been through Flood's description, his description of MRA talking points that almost but don't quite exist. Like, everything that he's attributing to us is stuff that isn't quite what we've said, but it is easier for him to pretend to debunk. So he's been setting up his little army of strawmen and pretending to knock them down with things that don't actually even address the arguments that he's attributing to us. So this has been kind of a trip, I guess you could say. But in the meantime, you know, we've been through discussions about men and women in the media, and it seems like feminists' only complaint is how many people are portrayed of each sex. It doesn't occur to them that when men are portrayed as disposable, when men are portrayed as the only people who can be made fun of, the only people who can be considered the bad guy, the only people who can be fleshed out in the negative rather than fleshed out in the positive, that is a way of saying that either humanity has to all be positive and men are subhuman, or humanity includes positive and negative unless you're female, and then you're superhuman. But at no point is it about equality. So it doesn't really matter if there's one woman and 100 men in the movie or the cartoon or the commercial or the article or the video game if 99 of those men are portrayed as red shirts, but the woman is protected because she's female. Right? It doesn't matter if the woman is that outnumbered by portrayals. If 99 of those men are the bad guy, and it's the hero's goal to make sure they don't get to her, or she's the hero. Right? That's just not an argument. As much as he's made that argument, it's not an argument. It's not valid. Doesn't mean anything. Has no bearing on how men are treated in the media in terms of portrayals of their character, portrayals of their place in society, and so on. It just is about numbers, and it's a worthless argument. And that's all we've gotten from him, this whole article. So now he wants to talk about children's media. So Mike and Lauren, if you guys hit Control F and type in children's media, you'll get to where I am. This is where we left off last week. We didn't start going into children's media. And the first sentence of it should say, anti-feminist commentators also claim that the media is mean to boys. Which I don't think I've ever said that in a sentence other than to read Flood writing it. Like, I think he thinks his feminist readers are so stupid that they wouldn't be able to tell the difference between arguments they encounter out in the wild from MRAs and his strawmen.
Do you have a link to the article?
Yeah, it's actually up too high now in the chat to see. Let's see here, Control. We'll put that right here. It's too bad he doesn't do this, since he has this super long article that is basically the same argument over and over again. It's too bad that he didn't do the thing where you can set your text up in this type of blog to where you can actually link to a particular place on the page. And unfortunately, I don't think I can do that. Or I would. But yeah, just hitting Control F and children's media should get you there. And it says children's media in bold text. Did it work?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. So here we go. Sorry, I'm going to clear my throat at you guys a lot too, because for some stupid reason my allergies kicked up a notch, even though the weather should be making them better. Anti-feminist commentators also claim that the media is mean to boys. Again, the evidence debunks this. So, have you guys seen anybody just flat out say the media is mean to boys?
I believe it's called consequence culture. is how we're referring to it.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen it phrased that way. We've discussed a lot of things. We've discussed about feminists talking about boys portrayed in the media and how inaccurate they are in terms of that. And we've talked about boys being portrayed as little brats, or as more adult than they are, as more responsible for things around them than they are, and how important it is for boys to have hero stories to learn from. But I don't think I've seen anything about the media being mean to boys. But there we go. That's Flood's argument. So he says, in children's cartoons, Male cartoon characters continue to outnumber female cartoon characters 4-1 in the traditional adventure genre, 2-1 in comedy cartoons.
Yeah, it's all flooding back to me now.
Yeah.
After a show ends, I wake up the next morning with a hangover with no memory of what happened. But now I'm remembering. Yeah, Michael Flood's approach to everything is, even though all males are portrayed as bad guys and all women are portrayed as good guys, there are still more men. Therefore, it's patriarchy.
Yeah.
And he does this with everything. Yeah, but there's more men. Yeah, but they're all assholes. Yeah, but there's more.
Or
that
disposable.
Just makes it more assholey a portrayal of men.
They're assholes, red shirts, life lessons, or in order to be a hero, they have to be self-sacrificing, and their focus has to be protecting women, helping women. They have to be chivalrous, not in the traditional sense of chivalry, but the romantic, female-focused sense of chivalry. But sure, they can outnumber. And then comedy. Oh, let's talk about that for a minute, right? Who do you get to make fun of? Are you allowed to make fun of women? What happens when you make fun of women in comedy?
Let's ask Leslie Jones how she feels about that.
Yeah. You can.
Everything goes through focus groups before it even makes it to the air.
Yeah.
Those focus groups are generally a mixture of men and women. And if you say anything bad about women, the women in the focus group go, "Wah, we don't like this," and so it gets re-edited, or it just gets quote unquote cancelled before it ever makes it to anything. And even if it does become a show or a movie, the same thing happens. If they get complaints from men saying we don't like this because of its portrayal of men, they go, "Lol, incel, neckbeard, basement losers." If they get complaints from women saying we don't like the way this treats women, they go, "Oh no, we'll do better next time." And it's the same all the time.
Yep, and they'll get mad about stuff.
Some complaints they care about, and some complaints they don't, and they just keep on going in that direction, assuming everything will be fine, even if the majority of our audience is men saying we don't like this because of the way it treats men. They don't care. They wait until they get a complaint from a woman saying you're making these female characters too strong, in case that ever happens, but it never does. So
no, they'll argue about why this woman is not a Mary Sue.
It's one-way traffic all the way to whatever the hell on earth they have planned for us is.
Yeah, I look at comedy portrayals of men and women in kind of an interesting way, I guess. When you look at what can be made fun of and what can be done, women can be clumsy. That's one thing, but it has to be mostly harmlessly clumsy, right? She has to be able to get back up and be like, "I'm okay," even though she's got birds spinning around her head or something. Whereas you can beat the hell out of a man for a joke. Men can be dumb. Women can be dumb, but not as dumb. They still have to have some sort of, like, in movies like Clueless, they still have to have some sort of savvy and understanding underneath their dumb. Whereas if you look at movies like Dumb and Dumber, they're just flat out morons. And it's funny that they're morons. And everything in the world has to go wrong for them because they're morons. And they have to be okay with it because they're morons. Whereas the dumb girl still has to have some sort of success in the end. She has to get something out of it. Some
redeemable quality about it.
Yeah.
Just makes it all okay.
She's got to at least be cute, right? The cute dumb blonde. It's it's very rare, especially in modern media, for you to see a woman portrayed as an absolute beast. Horrible, mean, nasty, ball-busting, hateful person, unless her victim is a little girl or another woman. You don't see as often a portrayal of just an absolute female monster. And the few times that you do, she becomes a feminist hero, like Gone Girl. So with cartoons, you're getting kind of the same thing, right? If you're gonna, tear all of somebody's limbs off violently for gags in a cartoon and then have them reattach or something like that. If you're going to have creatures chase themselves or chase each other around and try to kill each other throughout the entire cartoon and then end up being buddies in the end. If you're going to have something be left out in the cold and starve and it's somehow funny, if you're going to have somebody get shot in the face and have half their face turn around and be on the back of their head because it's funny, that has to be a male character. And going all the way back to Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies, it has to be a male character, right? When you bring in a female character, the gags that happen are how susceptible the male characters are to the allure of the female character. When you got adventure cartoons, the female characters don't have the self-reflection. They can't make mistakes like the male characters as much. If they do, the cartoon is fairly short-lived. They can never be the bad guy. They can never be the failure that has to redeem themselves. And so what we get from Flood, and in his argument about this, is he says, cartoons content is still gender stereotyped. Male characters are portrayed in highly masculinized ways. They are less likely to be supportive and polite, less likely to be romantic than female characters. They're more likely to engage in physical aggression and less likely to show fear than female characters. And I don't know what cartoons he was watching, but there's always a male character that is portrayed as shameful because of his fear in things like, or as comical because of his fear. In things like, the old cartoons that we grew up with where there was, at least some whiny male character that was always afraid to go do this or that. Whereas the female characters, it was portrayed as sensible when they were scared. Right? Mm-hmm. They were the voice of reason when they were scared.
Right. Which reminds me only of Pepe Le Pew. You remember that cartoon? Oh my God, I'm surprised that lasted as long as it did, and they haven't really come for it yet, unless there might be a Guardian article out there that exists. But it's like, what was he watching? How old is this guy?
I don't know how old he is chronologically. I want to say intellectually, psychologically, he's 12.
Yeah.
But that probably would be considered rude. I might say it anyway. I do that all the time. This is why people keep telling me, you must be autistic. I only listen when my doctor says it, though. Yeah, and they did cancel Pepe Le Pew. They made a big deal about that, even though everything that he does is portrayed as inappropriate and offensive to the female, and the comedy is that he doesn't get it, and he keeps getting her into bizarre situations because she's trying to get away from him, and then when she ends up smelling like a skunk or looking like a skunk, then he's no longer interested.
Yeah.
Which is commentary in and of itself.
Yeah, right.
Like, he's the clown in the whole thing. He's the butt of the joke, and they don't get it because they're mad that being the butt of the joke entails being clueless about the female's lack of interest in him.
Right.
But yeah, there you go. But they still canceled him, and he's still in cartoons, just, I don't know, emasculated, I guess. I don't know what they exactly did to him. It's like the modern Looney Tunes sucked so bad that my kids wouldn't watch them. So,
oh man.
Yeah. But somebody pointed out in anime also, because he when he talks about cartoons, I'm sure he's talking only about Western cartoons here. But in anime and manga, and he's probably not talking about comics either. Female characters can commit atrocities, but it's only as long as they have a sob story, they're forgiven, right? Male characters aren't forgiven for that. They're the bad guy. Their sob stories don't matter, and that's true for the most part. There are a few instances where you learn what shaped the bad guy, and we're supposed to have compassion, and then all of feminist social media explodes in outrage over the idea that we should even consider how a guy becomes a sociopath or a psychopath. Like, how dare you?
You're trying to humanize him.
Yeah, that would be the goal there. And of course, he's citing Anderson for this again. But I'll bet Anderson had more to say about it than that. The gender content of cartoons has changed little over a 60-year period. Physical attractiveness is emphasized more for female characters, and intelligence more for male characters. Like Yogi Bear. Like the first thing I thought of too. It's really awful. Female characters are more likely than male to be shown in secondary roles, such as helpers. And like, I've seen cartoons where female characters are the only characters, like, or the main characters at least, like totally spies. And oh gosh, I can't think of the name of the one with the naked mole rat. These are kids cartoons that my kids watched. So, and I actually, Kim Possible. I actually know a couple of adults my age that have the ringtone from that as their phone ringtone, because either their first name or their middle name is Kim. So there you go.
This makes me think of I love Animaniacs. That's one of my absolute favorite all-time cartoons. But this reminds me of Mindy and Buttons.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Right? So Mindy was just a little baby girl, and she completely ruled over the dog. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He had to protect her, and she was just, she was running wild.
The original Animaniacs could not be made today. People would find it offensive, right?
Yeah.
I can't remember. Was it also Mindy that did the okay, Mr. Beardy Man, love you, bye-bye. Like that.
Yeah.
Oh, God. So that character, I actually thought that character was hilarious. But I think feminists would get mad about her today.
Why?
Why? If you've ever babysat a little girl whose parents don't put the kibosh to that, that character is fucking hilarious. Just for that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, no, she doesn't exist. Never happened. There were never whole movies about where the female character was the protagonist. I can erase that part of my childhood where I was actually traumatized when the kangaroo abandoned Dot. Which none of you guys know what I'm talking about. It's old cartoon movie. Starts out with the little girl being a real little girl in a real family in a real setting, like film, blah blah blah. And she gets lost. She's Australian. She gets lost in the bush, and she gets rescued by a kangaroo. Takes her on an adventure, and then brings her back to her family. And then vanishes, and it ends with this girl plaintively calling after this kangaroo, and the credits start rolling, and there's no reconciliation that shows that, like, maybe she'll get to see the kangaroo again. And I will tell you, I was traumatized. I literally spent a whole day on and off crying over the end of that movie when I was a little kid. My mom wouldn't let me watch it again after that. But no. There's no more None of that. That doesn't exist. Albert Nader Retro gives us $2 Canadian and says, "Yellow nurse," and "need more be said." that's hello nurse, not yellow nurse. Hello nurse. Yeah, I'm sure feminists would hate that character.
I mean, but the Animaniacs was chock full of strong female characters.
Yeah.
I mean, Slappy the Squirrel, even Yakko, Wacko, and Dot. Dot was really the fucking main character.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The boys always played around her. Well, at least she always took center stage. You know?
Yeah.
She had one more element to her personality in that she was quite stringently feminist. Or that she was resentful of the boys because they were boys, something like that. Yakko and Wacko were entirely interchangeable apart from their voices.
Yeah.
Very different voices. But apart from that, they were the same. They were all the same character, except Dot was a little bit misandric. But that was normal in those days, just like it's normal these days, just like it was normal before those days. Even in Animaniacs, there was a little bit of boys are gross, throw rocks at them and stuff like that. But it was, it was bants between boys and girls, and it was before the days when it got, dare I say, political.
No, it was allowed to go a little bit both ways, and as you go further back in time, the further back in time you go, the more it was allowed to go both ways. To where if you look at old cartoons like the Wacky Races and the cartoons those were based on, the variety of cartoons, I don't know, Gen Xers will remember things like Grape Ape and Droopy and like all these characters that were just they were out of the 60s, right? Not the Pink Panther. What is his name? The Snagglepuss. Like all those different ones, and they had
one of the many famously not quite closeted gay characters from the era.
Yep, and they had characters. Yeah,
Elmer Fudd, clearly, but that's another story.
Yeah, and then of course they had characters that were based on characters from movies, like the characters from the movie The Great Race. And the if you go back to the movie The Great Race, there was a feminist character in that movie, and her feminism kind of got defeated by the sort of superior capability and interestingness, I guess, of the main male character. But everybody was sort of overshadowed, I think, by Jack Lemmon's character in that movie, and that character was made into a cartoon character. His sidekick had to be a dog, but they say they turn. I remember Max because the character says Max's name all the time. But all of these things. Jen Pottle says, "Don't ask me details about these. They are based on flash visual recollections from my son watching TV in the early 70s. I'm remembering watching these in the early 70s as well. We used to watch. So it used to be that you didn't just turn on the television and there were cartoons. When I was a kid, cartoons were on a little bit after school, but mostly it was Saturday morning. You had cartoons on for a number of hours on Saturday morning before the cartoons would go off, and you were expected to do this weird thing called going outside and playing at the park. But yeah, we used to really enjoy those, right, as kids. And we'd watch that, and then usually there'd be like maybe a Three Stooges movie or a kung fu movie or something. And this is the thing that feminists don't get about girls. If you don't tell girls that a role model has to be female in order for them to identify, they don't limit their identity to female characters, their identification to female characters, right? They will go outside with the boys and poke each other's eyes out and make donking noises and stuff just just as much as the boys do in response to Three Stooges movies. Knock each other in the head and all that kind of stuff. They kind of ignore the female characters in those movies. They don't really care so much. They don't have to be the female characters because it's the guys knocking each other around and getting knocked around that are the funny characters, and that's who everybody imitates, right? We did the same thing with pro wrestling. We didn't pretend to walk around the ring holding up numbers or anything, being the girlfriend of the wrestler and all that. Like, we just threw each other around and pretended to be yelling at each other into a microphone, said the most ridiculous things known to man. Just what you saw on television. And we played Kung Fu, we played Star Wars. Heck, my first little girlfriend was always Luke Skywalker when we played Star Wars. Always. Because she was the blonde. So there you go. But yeah, feminists don't get that. They don't get it. Girls don't have to see other girls doing things. Oh yeah, Richard Beer says we turned on the VM, waited for around 15 minutes before the picture was visible because the tubes had to warm up. The sound came in sooner though. Yes, it didn't quite take that long with the TVs that we had at my house, but I remember. We had the TV, and then we had an extra TV, which was kind of unusual, but the extra TV was black and white. So if, Dad was watching something else and we wanted to watch cartoons, we watched them in black and white. It's interesting to see, and Captain Kangaroo and stuff like that, too. It was interesting to see that there were episodes of that in color, because I first watched it all in black and white.
At scrolling through YouTube today, I saw a short that somebody posted, and it must have been like a TikTok video or whatever. But anyway, so it looks like it's probably the wife who's taking the video. But so the caption goes, yeah, the husband saved up and bought this 85-inch television, but he has kids. So the kids are sitting in the couch watching cartoons, and he's sitting on the couch watching the game on his phone.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, we didn't do that. We had the spare TV was in a separate room, and we watched more than Dad a lot of the times. We watched a lot of stuff on Saturday morning in color because he was working. He'd be out photographing some event, or Mom and Dad would be at a wedding and we'd have the grandparents over. But yeah, so I enjoyed watching television in black and white. It didn't really seem to make a whole lot of difference to me till I got older, and it was like, wow, that's old. That's like old technology. But yeah, the TV, if you tried to pick the damn thing up, you think old computer monitors are heavy. These things were heavy. We also had lightning blow one up all over our living room. That was kind of cool. Not really, but yeah, we came home from somewhere and there had been a thunderstorm, and you walk into the living room and they're like, Mom's like, stop! And everybody stopped, and she turns on the light, and there are glass bits and television guts all over the living room floor. You can see this big hole, and it was still kind of, you could smell the smoke. It obviously, something in it had burned out, and there was other damage, but that was the weirdest thing to come home to. At first, we thought the house had been broken into, and Dad was like, "No, that blew out. Something happened. That blew out." And then we had electrical problems, and they're like, "Oh, lightning struck the house. There's a burn mark on the roof. Lightning struck the house." That lightning struck that house twice when I was living there, and it got hit by 2 tornadoes. Our insurance company hated us. Albert Nader Retro gave us $5 Canadian and said, "Oh, this woman has a weird name." That's not what he says. Melaneral. I don't know who this person is. Melaneral Mac.
Melanie Mac.
Melanie Mac? Okay, so it's just misspelled. I never know with girls' names because they make shit up and then that's their name. Right?
There might be some Irish shit. There's always missing letters in Irish.
But it's like, my name is Luna Queen Wolfina. No. Get the fuck out of here. Your name is Jane. Shut the fuck up. Matt has a video called "The Double Standard is Real" regarding that scene from Thor: Love and Thunder that I won't let go. Give it a look. I don't know. Do you want me to pull my hair out? That sounds like a feminist video. But yeah, let's see here.
God, no comment. just no comment.
Yeah. So he goes on, and it's the same argument again. In children's books, there are nearly twice as many female main characters. Female characters are more likely to be portrayed inside the home and without paid occupation.
This makes me laugh because I'm just wondering who's sitting there counting all these fucking characters. Really, this is what you're reduced to?
The answer is feminists trying to get through their gender studies degree.
Yeah.
This is exactly the kind of shit. It's the Bechdel test.
Yeah.
I haven't done a gender studies degree, not now and not 20 years ago, not 30 years ago. But this is exactly the sort of thing they did. I did a drama degree, and yes, there were modules based on this sort of thing, and yes, they do make you study,
portrayals
and search through it for good feminist messages and bad feminist messages.
Oh, sigh.
That you interpret and that must therefore be there. And yeah,
it's kind of dumb. This
brainwashing the youngest people they can brainwash. Remember these cartoons you liked?
Yeah.
Feminism.
This whole thing is dumb. I'm looking at this, and I was an avid reader when I was a kid. I read everything I could get my hands on. If I could not have found books to read, I'd have read the backs of cereal boxes. Like that would have been. I read everything. I read instruction manuals for things, and I read the encyclopedia set that my parents had. They actually bought me a kid's encyclopedia because they thought it would be more interesting for me. I read that too, but the first thing that really got a good grip on my psyche, I'm gonna read this, probably was the Beverly Cleary Ramona Quimby series when I was like a little kid, and it was before I really got into sci-fi and horror and fantasy and all that. There's nothing in that like he's talking about. The female characters were little girls, except for the mom, who had a job even when she was pregnant. Right? The male character, there was a little boy male character occasionally that got mentioned that had his own series, and then there was the dad. There wasn't this portrayal he's talking about. And then I went through a variety of books, like everything from books with the main characters being little animals and inanimate objects to, you have Dr. Seuss, which it's kind of difficult in a lot of Dr. Seuss's work to apply gender because the creatures are completely imaginary, and even their names and their characteristics, their physical characteristics, don't necessarily imply gender.
Right.
But,
he said, we had one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish, but I didn't see anything about gay fish anywhere.
No. Obviously, Dr. Seuss did not like fish sticks. Albert Ada Retro gives us $5 and says, sorry for the typo. Melanie is not a feminist. She doesn't like the scene either. Everyone should check it out. Thumbs up. There you go. But yeah, I just, none of this is, I have to wonder, he doesn't really give a citation for that claim either. I have to wonder how many kids' books he looked into for that, because there's not a study on which that statement is based. It's just a statement. And then he says the same thing about toy commercials on TV. Toy commercials show boys in a wider range of interactions, competitive, cooperative, independent, than girls. And again, this is a 2014 thing. So I wonder what was looked at for that. This goes back to 2014. Because I remember growing up with ads where the Atari 2600 was advertised to both sexes. Girls were portrayed as competitive. Board games advertised to both sexes. Girls were portrayed as competitive and cooperative and independent. Dolls were more advertised to girls and boys, but they were advertised to both sexes. There were dolls for boys, not just action figures, but actual, like the soft-bodied dolls, the talking dolls, the walking dolls. They advertised those little creepy fuckers to both sexes. They portrayed boys playing with them the same way that girls did. Even when my kid was little, even when my all three of my kids were little, there was some doll called My Buddy that was advertised to boys. And they made out like it was the first doll advertised to boys, even though they advertised a similar doll in the 70s to boys. Didn't catch on, but they did advertise it. The Star Wars toys, those were advertised to both sexes.
I remember My Buddy.
Yeah.
And then they had to, and then they had Kid Sister.
Yes.
Kid Sister. Wherever I go, you're gonna go. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, the songs. Some of those ads were kind of creepy. Yeah. Some of the dolls were creepy. Tyler Preston says My Buddy inspired the Chucky movies. I wouldn't be surprised. It's kind of bullshit that it's portrayed differently for boys and girls. Play-Doh advertised to both sexes. Still today, I don't know if Barbie is advertised to both sexes, but a lot of stuff, action figures, video games, movies, advertised to both sexes. This is bullshit. So I don't know what they were looking at, but they're obviously not looking at the broad spectrum of media out there.
Yeah, there's a lot of pink toys, but there's not a lot of blue toys.
Yeah.
Maybe that's reductive. But yeah, Barbie was pink, G.I. Joe was green.
I mean, but even like Legos, you know what I mean? Legos were genderless.
Yeah.
But then they had to start pushing like, the girl sets. They do have pink Legos and shit like that. You know, they didn't have to. Obviously, there's a niche for it. You know what I mean? There's not a niche, but there's a market for it. And clearly, you're going to make more money if you market to little girls, because the parents of little girls are going to say, "Oh, they're cute. Look, it's just like what the boys do, but it's for girls."
Yeah.
And the key words that Flood has given are competitive and cooperative, as opposed to independent. And it's very much given as an example of toxic masculinity, isn't it? Competitiveness, being turning everything into a competition, is considered something that boys do more than girls, and therefore is toxic masculinity. I guess dolls are a kind of toy that doesn't involve competition or cooperation until it does. Do girls ever? Are little girls ever like, this is how I'm looking after my doll? It's better than your doll. Do they ever do that? I get the feeling they probably do in a sort of passive-aggressive sort of way.
Well, what we did was one of my childhood friends growing up, we used to make clothes for Barbie, rather than buying them. So like, I don't know what everybody else's mom did, but when I got tall fast as a little girl. So, and I didn't get any bigger around as I was getting older. So my long sleeve shirts became short sleeved shirts. She would cut off, the ends of the sleeves and hem them so that I could still have that shirt. And a lot of little girls' like dressy shirts, they would have at that time, there would be elastic around the edge of the sleeve, and then there'd be a little ruffle on the other side of the elastic from the part of the sleeve that went up your arm. So this ruffle would sort of hang over your hand a little bit. And so when I got tall enough that wouldn't come all the way down to my wrist anymore, that part would get cut off, and the sleeve would get hemmed up, and she'd put like eyelet lace or something on it. And I would have this sleeve, and it was the perfect fit for a long time, because I was a skinny little fucker. It was the perfect fit to make a Barbie skirt out of the elastic part. I just had to hem up the bottom of it. And I would do stuff like that. And so my friend would have to try to make something better and fancier. And between the two of us, we would add things and subtract things, and we ended up making clothing that looked like it came out of Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. Like, really weird shit. But the other one was Barbie Karaoke. We didn't call it that, but that's what it was. And because I had a stereo. And so we would play my tapes or my records and pretend the Barbies were singing, and they'd have a singing contest, and you had to move to the doll to dance, and it was a competition, and we were competitive, and we would put on shows and everything with our Mad Max clothes, singing on the stage to like, it was really, really weird. I suppose, way to play with them. Everybody else is portrayed on television as, needing the Barbie house and pretending Barbie has a family, and Ken goes off to work and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, that's just like real life. And Barbie staying home would have been weird to us because our moms worked. So it was just not the way we played with the doll. And we were competitive about it. We were competitive about a lot of other things, too. I can climb higher in this tree than you can. I always won that. I always won monkey bar tag. I always won balancing competitions, getting up on top of stuff and climbing and all that. I was very competitive as a little kid. And I don't remember seeing any portrayals on television that convinced me to be different than that I thought, oh, you can't do that, you're a girl. Maybe he's watching different stuff than I watched. But the thing that really gets me with this, all this about toy commercials and cartoons and all that, what's interesting to me is feminists talk about this stuff as though if there is not a separate, designated, designed for, and advertised specifically to girls thing, that genre, that niche, that whatever it is, that thing isn't for girls. So cars, like if a car is just a car and it's intended to just be driven around as a tool to get places, and there is nothing about it that is specifically marketed in a stereotypical feminine way, it's not for girls. It's not for women. If there's a toy that's just a puzzle, and all the portrayal is this puzzle is difficult, and you're very smart if you can solve it. And it's different every time you do it because it falls at random and you have to find the solution each time. And that's it. And there's no, it's pink, or look, here's a girl doing it, or anything along those lines that you say, well, okay, this is specific to females and not just in general everybody. Then it's not for girls. But you don't have to have a specific portrayal of boys do this, boys enjoy this, this is for boys, in order for boys to be expected to like something.
Right.
It's like, boys are expected to show up, girls have to be invited.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think feminists will ever be able to reconcile that. So he says, thus in media representations, boys are not marginal, nor are they denigrated, which I would argue that quite frequently they are denigrated. They're portrayed as somebody that you can denigrate. Boys are portrayed as the gender that matters, that gets things done. Boys are the default, the norm. And that, again, relies on what I just said, like, girls are only included if they are singled out and attention is drawn to them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The upside-down world of men are marginalized rhetoric, such as Steve Biddulph's book, Rising Boys. Men are often targets of ridicule in the media, yet actual studies on media representation find persistent patterns of male dominance and sexist stereotyping. Notice he didn't debunk the men are often targets of ridicule statement there.
No, of course not. It's like he doesn't even have to. It's just because there's X number of men and it's greater than the number of women, that just, it means everything. That's the only thing that matters to this guy.
Yeah. Like, you have a complaint. You shot me. Well, you've got big muscles.
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't deny that you shot me at all. Like, dude, you just address the statement. He can't do that. He can't even address what's the actual argument. So now we get into media ownership and control. Right? He says, a second important way in which the media is not anti-male, but in fact male-dominated, is that much of the media is, quote, owned and controlled by men. Women historically were absent and excluded from decision-making and ownership in the media industries, and this pattern continues today. And he has a citation for this one.
You know, this is the same fucking argument that feminists use for the vote. Right? I mean, it's men always had it. Women historically never ever had it, but you know, it doesn't mean that they didn't actually have fucking political influence. Yeah. You know what I mean? So this, oh God, he's too much for me. So you mean there's not a bunch of women at the heads of these companies? Well, then take it up with women.
Well, there's another flaw that I notice in this argument, right? This is a constant thing with feminists, I see with feminists too. They portray things, they discuss things that men do as things that men have, as if those things were handed to men and denied to women.
Right.
Right? So how do men get control of a newspaper, for instance, or magazine? Who started those newspapers and magazines? Who originated them?
Mm-hmm. Who put up the Capitol?
Yeah. Like journalism literally started with people's diaries, right? Mm-hmm. They write things down and they share what they wrote with other people. And it's mostly a male behavior. Informing the public. This is going on in my area, what's going on in your area. This is going on in this area, far away from you guys, thought you should know. This leader did this thing, everybody needs to know about. Like, that's traditionally, men started doing that, and then when it became profitable, they built companies and hired more people to do that more. And eventually women got interested in it and started doing it also. And then along comes Michael Flood complaining that women have been historically denied control over this. Well, no. Men created this. Men built this. Men cultivated this. Men grew this. Men spread this. Men made it a thing worth doing for profit. They made it prestigious, and then women were like, I want to be part of that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with wanting to be part of that and wanting to contribute to it. But there's a hell of a lot wrong with complaining as if men kept you out of it. Stop complaining about things men did as if they are just things men had arbitrarily for no reason and denied them to women, because it's not true.
Exactly.
But that's what he says. Ownership of and policy setting for media is overwhelmingly dominated by men like Oprah Winfrey. Oh, he didn't say like Oprah Winfrey. Typically highly economically privileged white men like Oprah Winfrey. Oh, wait. That's not working out well there. More widely, formal and informal discrimination has prevented women from being hired, promoted, and retained in news and other media industries. Has he ever watched the news? Like, it maybe historically more men were anchors. Historically, more men were interested in that job. But female news presenters, there have been female news anchors on the evening news back when it was just the evening news. Since I was a kid, there were female presenters.
Exactly. Right.
Crazy.
Exactly. And now what's happening now is that women are pushing their way into men's locker rooms to report on the news. You know.
Yeah.
Had something.
Well, they've been doing that since the 90s.
But yeah, but like they're trying to shoehorn women into like sports reporting, sports news reporting. Nobody wants to listen to women talk about a sport that they don't play.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just ridiculous the way they're trying to force women into it. And it's not that women don't necessarily want to do it. It's just that it's not what men want. It's not what people who consume sports entertainment media, it's not what they want.
Yeah.
You know, forget it. There's just not enough women. Got to get some more in there. That'll fix everything, right?
Like a lot of the most popular sports commentators are former athletes. I don't know if women understand that or not, but that's a fact.
Right.
I don't know. Anyway, he goes on with, for example, in news media, men are a majority of journalists, and overwhelming majority of upper management. Men are a majority of TV news directors, TV reporters, and front page newspaper writers. So I'm gonna latch on to the front page thing real quick here. There are a lot of times when getting on the front page is a result of a reporter seeking out a story that will appeal to readers or be important enough to readers that management will want to put it on the front page. This isn't something that gets handed to them. It's something that the reporter finds out about. This thing is going on. I'm going to talk about it. And they present it to their editor, and the editor's like, yeah, we have to talk about that. You go ahead and research it and write it, and we'll publish it. And it's big news, so it goes on the front page. Right? That is not necessarily a matter of women being denied space or women being denied interesting stories. My experience is that it's women not seeking out stories that are worthy of the front page. And when it comes to directors, like, again, this is a matter of what women seek out to do. If a woman wants to become a director, she can become a director. If a woman wants to be a reporter, she can be a reporter. Right? If a woman wants to be a writer, she can be a writer. There isn't some club with meetings and rules that you have to jump through a set of hoops that men don't have to jump through to get to these positions. Feminists kind of make up that there is, and it's bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. And it just it floors me that this guy is making the argument that, well, men own everything. Look, men do all these jobs. They're all of the directors and the reporters. They're all in upper management. And then he's befuddled by this representation that he's made in his mind that, or boys are portrayed as the gender that matters, that gets things done. Well, you're telling everybody that they're the ones doing every fucking thing. So
Yep.
which is it?
Boys are the sex that gets things done. How dare you portray that?
Right. Right.
Jeez.
It's just, I mean, but just look at they're doing everything. They're doing all the jobs. How dare you portray them as the ones that get things done?
And don't forget, news spelled upside down is men. Or
Something like that.
to men. New upside down is men with a backwards E, which just goes to show you that news is made for and by men. Even though upside down of men would be the opposite of men, or the complementary of men, which would be women. But that's not the point. It's men. It's a particular kind of men, which is upside down news men, which is the same as women. Shut up. There are more men than women.
It's interesting. There are some things that he ignores here. Among other things, for instance, if a man wants to have a regular syndicated news column or column in a publication without providing any journalistic value, where he's reporting on news or trends or whatever, he has to be able to be an expert in something. I'm going to give you advice on how to fix your car. I'm going to give you advice on how to do home repair, right? Something along those lines. Women can do that. I'm going to give you advice on how to teach your kids. I'm going to give you advice on how to clean your house, or whatever, or even the things that men give advice about. But it seems to be a rare thing for an advice columnist about how to fix your life, how to respond socially to various situations, what is or is not considered to be polite in polite society and such. Those are all, only women can do that for the most part. Those are all feminine things. Only women are allowed to tell people how to live and how to interact with each other and so on. That type of advice is maybe in magazines that are just for men. Some men might do that, but if you look in a nationally syndicated column in your local newspaper, or in popular magazines that are not dedicated to a particular gender, or even websites, news websites that have these types of columns, the advisor is female, right? The advisor that tells you what is a faux pas, a social faux pas, when you wear it to your sister's wedding, as opposed to what is appropriate, what type of gift you should bring to this or that event, what type of treatment you should expect in the workplace, and what characteristics you should look for in a partner. Those types of advisors are almost always women, and you don't usually get any complaints from feminists about that. Right? Women are the arbiters of normalcy, and feminists don't even talk about that. But yeah, who's reporting on this bombing or that new law that's been passed, or this football game and who won and so on. That's a big deal. He goes on, let's see. For example, the United States Federal Communications Commission's November 2012, we're still, again, this is a 10-year-old report. November 2012 report on ownership of commercial broadcast stations found that men own the vast bulk of majority interest in U.S. broadcast stations. So that's another deceptive statement here because we're talking about investors. The vast bulk of majority interest, not the companies themselves. They're not singly owned, right? That's people who have purchased interest in this, purchased sections or segments or shares in these companies, or they own outlets. Like they're 50% owner or 75% owner of this building, and so on.
Yeah, well, it's very convenient that he doesn't take into account the fact that there are very few people who control and own media outlets like Rupert Murdoch.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you think that CNN and Fox News are any different? No, they're owned and controlled by the very same people. It's just a different side. It's just a different spin. It's just a different take.
Yep. And you look at it, it's how people spend their money.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Men invest in stuff like this. Like, a woman will drop $5,000 on a dress that she's going to wear once. Right? A woman will drop, $500 on a pair of shoes that she's going to wear once. Once. And then she's never going to wear them again. And it's worth it because it's for her perfect day.
Right.
Right? Her day, not their day, her day. Where a guy treats his money as a tool that he needs to use to make more money. Mm-hmm. And then when he has more money, then if he drops $5,000 on something, it has to work for him. It has to do something for him, entertain him, be useful to him, be enjoyable for him, de-stress, go on vacation. Like if he drops $5,000, he's going to Maui or something. Like that's the difference. A woman will spend $5,000 on a dress and then criticize a guy for buying season tickets to be able to see his particular favorite athletic team perform over and over again for over the course of several months.
Right, and she'll excuse her shopping trips as retail therapy.
Yep.
It's just occurred to me. Traditionally, weddings are paid for by the father of the bride.
Yep.
I have to wonder what the onset of fatherlessness is doing to where the hell people are getting the money to pay for all the lavish weddings that all these women
It's the
want.
husband. The husband is being required.
It's the nearest richest man in the equation.
Right.
Yeah. And see, that was when my husband and I got married, and when we said we were going to get married, my parents were like, "Well, how much is this going to be? What are we going to do?" And I'm like, "We're not spending a bunch of money on this." And we didn't. We really didn't. We barely spent anything in comparison to what people usually spend. We didn't do the big reception hall and all that stuff either. But we weren't 20. And we were almost 30, so there you go. But I've seen women spend tens of thousands of dollars on that one day and then get divorced 5 years later. Mm-hmm. And I have to wonder what their dads are thinking.
Right.
So men will spend... The reason that women don't have big investment in stuff like this is because, first of all, they're used to spending other people's money on shit like, I'm going to waste, $10,000 to $30,000 on this celebration of a lifelong commitment that is only going to last me 5 years. Right? And when they get big chunks of money that they can spend to invest in something like this, they don't. They don't take the risks, or they spend it on things that they want. They spend it on themselves, not on something that will make a profit for them. Right? And it's
They spend it on clothes and purses and makeup and hair so that they can attract a guy of higher value.
Yeah.
Because that's what she deserves. I need somebody on my level, you know.
I saw women when I worked at the pharmacy come in and spend $100 in a shopping trip on ways to make themselves look different than they actually looked. Goop to put on to hide their actual facial features. Like, just that. And that was, then they'd agonize over the cost of soup. Like, well, if you didn't just drop $25 on a tube of lipstick.
And this is exactly what these fucking bitches are doing, okay? They're spending all their money to get dolled up to attract men so that they can take them out to buy them dinner because they can't fucking afford anything and they don't know how to cook.
Yeah.
Disgusting. It's disgusting.
I don't know. Yep. I don't know any man who would rather you spend that $100,000 on makeup than on steaks.
Yeah. Right. See, that's what I do. I spend it on steaks.
Out of bed with the crazy hair and with the makeup spin all over your face and make us a steak. We don't give a shit how high you are on the fucking 10 marker. Fucking feed us and shut the fuck up, and you're leagues ahead of most bitches.
Yeah. So I look at this and I'm like, this thing of talking about things men do and build and maintain as if they are just things men have for no reason and women are excluded from, when actually no, women just didn't participate in the doing, the making, the building, the maintaining of these things. That's bullshit. That is one of the most fundamental building blocks in the feminist wall of bullshit. And it stinks. He says, in a study of the top 250 highest grossing movies of 2021. There we go. Okay. Only 25% of behind-the-scenes roles were filled by women.
Oh, God.
Okay. I gotta... So basically what you're saying is the grunt work to make these films happen is mostly done by men.
Mm-hmm.
The mostly hard stuff.
I guarantee you.
Yeah.
It's very similar percentages for people who actually apply for that in the first place. It's much like politics. Only a quarter of people in politics are women. Yeah, only a quarter of people who apply for politics are women. Only a quarter of the people who apply for dog's body jobs behind the camera are women. But a great deal of the people who apply for jobs as actors are women. In fact, I'd say it's dominated by women. And they'll find a way to make that misogynistic as well.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's the feminist bullshit block of arguing about things men do as if they are things men have. You get a job driving a taxi and the company uses nice cars. Oh, you get to drive a Lexus, you get to drive a Lincoln, you get to drive a Bentley, whatever. I don't think there are Bentley taxis, but in any case, you get to drive this, you get to drive a Cadillac, you get to drive a Crown Victoria back in the day, whatever. No, it's not get to. You applied for the job, you got the licensing for the job and applied for the job. You paid thousands of dollars for that license, actually. You drove up to a particular standard, and you get to drive that car because it happens to be what the company uses, so that the women that call a taxi to take them home after they walk out on their boyfriend can ride in comfort. Same thing here. Movies showcase femininity in a lot of different ways. They showcase the value that society imparts on women, the importance the way that we look at women as the goal, like women as the moral measuring stick and so on, right? Movies will showcase that, and men will do the manual labor to make it perfect. But women don't apply to do those jobs. They don't go looking for those jobs because they want to be the woman portraying the moral measuring stick, the goal, the important person that everybody in the movie is focused on protecting or providing for or winning her attention, or that she's overcoming all odds and blah blah blah. Like, that's who they want to be. They all want that little single individual position, and only the woman who fits it the best, or is the most capable of portraying that, gets it. And all of the other women then get mad because they didn't get to be involved in the making of the movie. Well, you didn't apply for something else. You didn't try for something else. Nobody wants to be an extra. Every woman wants to be the star. That's why. So women were only 22% of editors, only 17% of directors and writers, only 6% of cinematographers, and was an abysmal 6 out of every 100, right? Of C-suite positions in media and entertainment, only 27% are held by women. Putting this the other way around, men comprise 78% of editors, 83% of directors and writers, 94% of cinematographers, and occupy 73% of C-suite positions. Again,
yes,
we are arguing things.
The subtraction.
Yes, math is hard. Well, he had to do that because his feminist readers wouldn't understand.
By the way, editors are like the sewage workers of media. They have to sit in front of a computer moving shit around for like 12 hours a day for weeks and weeks on end. It is not a glamorous job. And the women don't want it for the same reason they don't want sewer jobs.
Yeah.
Because for the most part, they don't want to be sat in front of a machine moving shit around. For the same reason baby girls would rather stare at a human face than a clock face. And baby boys would rather stare at a clock face than a human face. This is long since established. Why wouldn't it translate into more men being interested in staring into a computer, moving digital shit around for ungodly amounts of time? Obviously, men are going to be more interested in that. On the whole, hashtag not all, blah, blah. I shouldn't even have to say this shit anymore, but it's still going on.
But it is true that mostly men choose to do that. Mostly men apply to do that. And the other thing is men seem to make fewer mistakes at it. Right? And there's a lot of frustration that goes into that. I personally, just the little bit of video work that I do now, and back when we did wedding videos and stuff, using much older software than using now, I would end up in physical pain from it. Right? You get done by the end of a video. By the time you're ready to actually save the final cut from it and provide it to the consumer, we're talking, I would have to go to a chiropractor every single time, or at the very least go into the kitchen and press my fists down into the counter and lift myself up off the floor, and then my neck and my back would make a sound like you just broke a bundle of firewood up, and I would be 2 inches taller. Like, this is the reality of that job. A lot of women don't want to do that. A lot of women don't care to sit that long, and if they do, they don't necessarily put as much attention into it. And we had other women that worked with our business at different times, and we would end up, you'd burn your final cut, and then you have to watch it. Burn your final cut to DVD, and then you have to watch it, and oops, there's actually a couple of seconds of no anything on screen. Where did the picture go? What happened there? You come to find out you accidentally deleted it. And you have to go back and find that spot and put the image in, and it messes up everything that was on there after it, and then you have to go through and reposition everything in the line on the software. It was not fun. So, and it wasn't glorious or glamorous, and nobody was like, "Oh, thank you, Susie, for the great job of editing that you did." We didn't put credits at the end of our wedding videos. It just had our name on them, that we created the video and stuff like that. So you didn't see people sticking with that job unless they were part of the family. And you certainly didn't see people wanting that to be their role, right? But you had to do it or you don't have a video. So it's one of those things. Men do the jobs that you have to do this or you don't have the outcome that you want. You don't have the product. So, yeah, that's where we are. And again, we have what? The feminist argument of portraying things men do as things men have. Like, for no other reason. Oh, men just have this. Women should have this too. Why don't women have this? Well, it's because it's something men do.
Right.
If you want to have it, do it. I don't know if we should start the next one. I'm gonna wait. We're into because he has his list of resources. Much of the above is summarized from chapter 4 in this book, Anderson, KJ, 2014, Modern Misogyny, Anti-Feminism in a Post-Feminist Era. And so his whole narrative comes from a book that's almost 10 years old. And then he gives a bunch of references here. And they're, let's see, we have 2014, 2008, 2019. So the newest one is 2019. It's a men's celluloid world, the portrayals of female characters in the top grossing films of 2019. So it's a study of 1 year. Let's see here. Okay, this one's 2023, but there's no link to it. It's probably behind a paywall. Mm-hmm. Gender bias in video game dialogue. Royal Society, Open Science, blah, blah, blah. I'll bet he cites literally who's. Smith. Let's see. That one is 2012. So yeah, his stuff is all either old or a study of 1 year or something that you can't see unless you go behind a paywall. Which is why he probably didn't link to it. It might not even be online. And I see his resources. One of them is himself. So he's self-citing there. And the other two are feminist resources, womeninhollywood.com and cjane.org. Like nothing, like he's to get what are men's rights activists' arguments on this topic, he's not citing a single MRA source. So there you go. We will probably continue.
That's not biased at all.
Yeah. No. I'm looking at this. We got to go through the rest of this. We're gonna slog through this bullshit as we go. But I don't have a lot of hope for this being necessarily different each time we come back to this content. Because the next topic we're going to look at is women's control of personal wealth. And I just have my suspicions that it's going to be the same argument. We're going to watch for this next week when we talk about this. Watch for an argument that we haven't made. Or an argument that is almost but not quite entirely unlike the arguments that we make. Thank you, Douglas Adams, for that brilliant way of putting it. It's so fitting to discussing the way feminists discuss MRAs. So look for that. Look for the straw man to be attacked with arguments that portray things men do as things men have, just arbitrarily have, and look for responding to descriptions of things men experience with not denials of those experiences, but deflection to other details that the feminist wants you to think are more important. Because that's what I'm seeing here. Numbers games, deflections, and straw men, and false framing. And it's all he's got. I don't know, do you guys have any other predictions about this? Are you still there? There we go.
Yeah, we're here. You're getting a little robo. I think we both are. But yeah, no, I think the logical fallacies will know no bounds with this guy. I think this is going to get pretty heated because I see the topics that he's touching on, and I just if it's anything like the beginning half of this article, which I'm sure it is. Oh, this is gonna be a rough ride.
Yeah, and every single topic that he has on his list here, he's got this whole fact checking MRA's page, right? He's got this whole thing. Every single topic is he has somewhat of a straw man, or he tries to delegitimize a legitimate issue. And that's it. He doesn't have anything else. Right after next week, we'll be doing women's control of personal wealth. Right? We'll look through that. When we get through that, it's a little bit shorter than the other one. The next thing he wants to talk about is paternity fraud.
Yeah,
right?
I guess I'm.
Yeah.
I don't like this guy already, and I have a feeling this is not going to get any better as this one goes on.
That's why I've nicknamed him Michael Fraud. I can't help it. It drives me nuts. The guy can't be honest to save his life. I swear to you, if aliens came down out of the sky right now and said, "We're going to vaporize you if you don't tell the truth about men's rights activists," he'd be gone in a split second.
Michael row the boat ashore. Michael flood.
Yeah. With that, I'm going to go through and see if we have any other super chows, super chats, super duper anything. And I'm scrolling through 50,000 segments of the Badger Discord trying to find our super chows. There it is. All right. And so we have one for tonight, one super chow. Meredith G gave us $5 and said, HBR Talk 286, honey for the Badger. And that is it. And I don't think there are any super chats that I didn't read. I think the last one was the one about Melanie. And then there don't seem to be, I'm going to look again, but there don't seem to be any paid chats in on Rumble at this point. So, nope, I don't see. Mua Fursina pointed out one thing in their talk about male characters in comedy. Men are funnier than women. Think of the bell curve. And I will say this. There is a very solid reason why men are funnier than women. And it isn't just the fact that on the IQ spectrum, there are more men than women at the high end and men are at the highest heights of the high end as opposed to women. It is that men are capable, they're more capable of self-depreciation and negative self-reflection, self-criticism, not taking themselves too seriously, right? And being the butt of the joke than women. Right? They don't get as offended about people laughing at them as women will try to get you to laugh at them, and then they'll be offended that you did. And then when women are self-depreciating, they have to bash men at the same time. Like if you look at Amy Schumer, for instance, her self-depreciation all seems to revolve around settling for lower quality men and being fat. So,
if you want an answer that won't even offend women, men are funnier than women because women laugh more than men.
True.
Now, we can argue about why women laugh more than men. That comes down to some Evo psych stuff that's going to divide opinion one way or another. But where we found ourselves is women laugh more than men, so it stands to reason men would be funnier than women.
Yep.
Discuss in the comments below, folks.
Yeah, men work harder to impress women than women do to impress men, too. Men have to be genuine to impress women. You can't put on makeup and be like, look, I look fake. Love me. Women can. So, there you go. But then, yeah, then they'll whine that comedy is male-dominated. Well, men are funnier than women. And men are more capable of being funny than women. So there you go. With that, I think we're going to call the show. We're going to end it. So thanks to everybody for listening to this toxic cesspool of muck. Thanks to my two co-hosts for wading through it with me. And thanks to everybody who works in the background to make HBR Talk happen. And good night, all.
Good night.
Yo.
Men's right activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.